up. Whoa, we're gonna rise up. Whoa, we're gonna rise up. Whoa, not gonna give up. Whoa, we're gonna rise up. Rise up, yeah. Oh, we're gonna rise up.
Well, welcome to Rise Up, hosted by me, Steve Collum. I'm so excited you're here. Today, we have an amazing guest interview for you. I'm going to be interviewing Glenn Lavender, and he has got an amazing story, how he started Silver Hand Meadery, not brewery, meadery. And if you're not quite sure what that is, it's a honey-based brewery, and it's amazing. So I'm so excited. We're going to talk about some of the obstacles that he had to challenge and some of the things he had to kind of go over or get through to reach some of his dreams. And we share like 3 great, amazing tips and points that I really think will benefit you. And you'll be able to take those keys and be like, chase your dreams, chase the businesses, chase the things that you want in life, and by using these 3 little keys. And so I'm excited, and I also want to let you know that this podcast is sponsored by my Patreon account, which is, if you head over to patreon.com/Steve Collum, and I encourage you there, think about maybe supporting me, and as little as a coffee a month, that helps run this podcast. And the main reason I started this podcast, I wanted an inspirational and motivational discussion group where I can show you keys or help you reach your dreams. And the beginning of this year, me and my wife gave birth to our precious little son Asher, who was stillborn, and it really rocked our worlds and really changed us. But I really wanted to give him a voice. I wanted to be able to give him a voice, and no better way, I thought, than some sort of inspiring and encouraging and motivational message, a motivational talk, where every single episode we share amazing stories on how people overcame those tragedies or obstacles in their lives. So anyway, feel free, please head over to patreon.com/Steve Collum, and think about supporting us here. So awesome. Let's go ahead and dive into this amazing interview. Gosh. And so coming back a couple of years ago, there was something called the pandemic and the COVID-19. So how did you get through? Because you're on the other side and you haven't closed shop. You haven't kind of get through that. And is there any lessons there, any tips there where it's like, you obviously beat that, or you didn't get flattened by that, pandemic?
Yeah, no, it didn't kill the business. In fact, so we did have to we laid almost everybody off for a few weeks just because we didn't know what the future was, and we just thought this whole thing will tank if we just keep sending out paychecks for the next who knows how long. And we knew that there was enough government assistance that everybody could be fine for a little while we all rode this thing out together. Then some of that government assistance was set up for businesses, and so we started bringing people back on again. And so we hired most of our folks back on. And being a musician and entrepreneur, you're just forced to be creative. And I like going back to the analogy of the Beatles only had 4 tracks to work with, and they figured out, hey, if we record on these 4 tracks and then dump those down to 2 stereo tracks, then we have 2 more tracks, and then we can dump those down to a stereo track, then we get 2 more tracks. Like, they figured out within the constraints of what they had. And so we had an event this weekend also where we had constraints by our local ABC laws that we thought were going to be bad for us, but we ended up finding a way that made it work well, and we actually had a very successful weekend. So I think those constraints can sometimes actually be quite helpful and force us to be creative. So Yeah, we did a number of things that got us through, and then we got, you know, some of the relief money really did make a difference for us and helped us to keep rolling. But I would say, like, on a personal note, in 2020, I think the day we let everybody go and I was standing in the meeting and it was empty, and I was just like, what am I doing? Like, maybe it's time to, maybe it's just like, I was fine at that moment to just get rid of everything. And that was partly tied because my mom, who lived in Canada at the time, was diagnosed with lung cancer. And so I was just like, let's just get rid of all this. I'll move back up there and be with her. And so that was a bit of a moment for me as to, like, what am I doing? What do I really want to be doing? What am I doing no matter what else is going on? And that's this. I'm always picking up my guitar. I'm always trying to write songs. No matter what else I do, that will always be the case. And so, you know, between COVID, laying everybody off, starting to bring them back on, then we lost my mom in August of 2020. I think all of that was what led me to get into this new world of, like, I was in music forever, so to get back to it in a different form, and how we got to know each other in the winter of 21. So I would say that whole season was more like a focusing. I think it was for a lot of people, just like, what's actually important to me? Where do I really need to be spending my time? So I think the challenge of COVID was kind of a centering and focusing for me personally. And then, but the business just kept growing. So that was great.
Yeah, gosh, sorry to hear about your mom. It's you know, it's a tough thing. You know, it's my mom passed away in 2020, and it was like through cancer as well. And it's just
Oh,
just,
what time of 2020? What month?
it was October 2020. Yeah.
Is she in Australia?
Yeah, in Australia. So I had to fly down there during the during the pandemic and do what do they call it? The
Quarantine?
quarantine, compulsory quarantine, where you got locked in your room. And
So how long were you in quarantine there?
so we were me and my wife went down there together, and so they gave us, we had 2 weeks, so it's a 2 week quarantine. They did let us out to visit. It's kind of all screwed up, messed up how that worked, but they let us out for one day. And so I don't know how the quarantine kind of worked, but they let us out for one day to go visit mom, and then we had to come straight back or something. And it's like, I don't understand how the quarantine works with something like that. But anyway, so
Yeah.
so we did get to see her, and then we got out, and it was a few days later that she passed away. But you know, and
Steve, we've got such a similar story, man. Like, we went up to Canada. We had to quarantine for 2 weeks. My sister gave us her house for 2 weeks, basically. My whole family went up there and lived in her house for 2 weeks. And a week in, we're like, nobody's got any symptoms. What's going on? And so it was my wife's birthday, but I said to her, you know what? I'm just going to hop on my brother-in-law's bike and bike over to mom's, because I don't want to be in a car with Virginia license plates driving around Ontario when everybody's terrified of everybody, you know? And then my sister called me just a few minutes before I was going to leave and said, hey, mom's wondering when you're going to get here. And that was her last night. And so I biked over and spent the evening with her, and she left us the next day. And so then I had to go back into quarantine for the remainder of our quarantine. And then we did the funeral after. So it was very similar story to you. And a funeral during that season was brutal. Oh man. Anyway, but that's some of the tough stuff of life that we all have to face at one point. So
yeah, it really is. And it's you know, life is, I was telling my wife just the other day that life is kind of like a stream. You know, it's just going to keep going, and it's, you know, meaning that, you know, it's going to keep flowing. You can't fight it, you know. And the stream is kind of like colored with different colors, and we get them all. You know, we have blue days, you know, everything's calm and cool, and you have yellow happy days, but then you have red days, or, you know, or red times where it's just, you know, suffering a loss or whatnot, and you know, but everybody gets all the colors in the stream. You get them all at different times, and it's like you can't. It's messy. You know, water splashes, hits a rock and splashes up on the wall or something that's not supposed to, or whatever. But life is messy, you know. So yeah,
I think, and I think through the grief, I learned to like embrace the grief at a level of like, I think your amount of grief is exactly proportionate to the amount of love and care you had for that person.
yeah,
So like if you're willing to take that risk to jump in with someone, and I mean with your mom, you don't, it's not a choice really, it's just there, right? And we had a good close relationship, but I think, it's when you lose somebody like that, it's you're gonna feel it for a long time, and that's part of the cost. Like it wouldn't be worth anything if there was no cost.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So I just learned to be like, no, this is good. This is good. I had a great. We just had a. It was a great thing to have done, to have had her, and so yeah, I think about that with everything. Like, okay, what is this? This is really good right now. What's the cost? This is costing something, I'm sure, and then try to figure those things out.
Uh, oh yeah, absolutely. And so I'm curious with people like people listening on, they've got these business ideas, they've got these ideas that they want to do, and what would you suggest, or what would you kind of warn them, or because people are driving along listening to this, or they're at the gym or wherever, and they're listening to this and or watching this, and they're like, I have an idea for whatever it is, that dream thing, because you were just talking about standing in that empty meadery, just really reassessing what you want to do going forward, and there's many people are even at that fork in that road right now, and they're just like, I'm done with my job or wherever it is, and I'm ready to dive out, and I cannot keep going the way I'm going. I'm ready to change. So what kind of advice, or what kind of warnings or things would you suggest to people like?
I'm not good at warnings, but I would say like it's very hard to do something if you can't see it. And so find as many different ways as possible to see the thing that is in your head that you've dreamed up. And so I visited I went to University of California, Davis for a mead making course to like understand more about the process. And there I met a bunch of people who owned meaderies and have started it. And it was like, okay, this doesn't actually seem as crazy as I thought it was. Then I went and visited as many meaderies as I could. And, some of them was just like, oh boy, we'll never get to that spot. And then, but others were like, oh, could totally do that. So if there's a business idea you have, if there's whatever facets there are to it, if you can figure out, find a place where you can go see that, because once you can see it, it helps you get on a path. Like if you've got a visual for where you want to be, it's so much easier to get there. So that would be my recommendation. See what you want to do in person, tangibly, not on a computer. Like get out of your house and go see it. Go meet people who are doing it. Talk to people who are doing it, and I think you'll find yourself pretty inspired. And then the plan. Making a business plan is so laborious and annoying, but like it helps you see what you want to do. It paints the picture and makes it more of a reality. And as an entrepreneur and business starter, you've got to be the visionary. You've got to visionary. It's called visionary because you got to see it and share that vision with other people so that they can see it and they can all be working towards what that vision is.
Gosh, that's absolutely amazing. And like, yeah, absolutely. So just taking a back step now, you're on your tour bus like years ago, and you're reading books on beekeeping and meadery and brewing and all that. You're educating yourself. You're kind of like learning. And then you took a smaller step before opening up your actual brick and mortar store. You took a smaller step to get around people and learn, that wasn't free. I know that wasn't free to go and to do those university courses, but you invested in yourself, and you invested in that dream, and then you did it, and then you got the relationships. I always say to people that, if you want to be somewhere different in a year's time, it's the books you read and the people you hang around. And you did exactly those two things. You hung around the people, and you went and toured some, or visited some of your new friends brewery meaderies, and you hung out.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the bigger picture. Or I think I could do that, and no doubt you asked them many questions, and then you opened your own. I'm guessing.
Yeah. I took notes at every single one I went to, wrote down the things that I thought were great, wrote down the things that I would do differently, and cross-referenced them as I kept visiting different places. And then, go to a couple of wineries, go to a brewery. What things can I borrow from them that work? So our business, like the fun thing about mead is there's no rules for it. Nobody has any expectations because they don't know what it is. So you can make it like beer if you want. Like you can make it a 6 or 7% alcohol, and or you can make it more like wine where it's 14% alcohol. You can make it sweet. You can make it not sweet at all. You can barrel age it. You can do all those things. So our goal from the beginning was to sort of treat it like a winery, because I just don't drink beer. I'm not a big beer fan personally. I appreciate it from time to time, but I do enjoy wine a little more. And so, and I like that winery experience. I don't know, feels a little bougie or something. I don't mind saying it, but so I wanted to create that sort of experience for our guests. And most people don't realize there's a lot of different flavors of honey, because if the bee collects nectar from the orange flower versus the avocado flower, you've got like molasses honey, or you've got like citrusy bright honey. And then you ferment those honeys. I mean, it changes things. So people don't know that. And so it makes it a fun thing.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely. So tell us a little bit about how your, unless it's a trade secret or anything, I don't know how you actually make some of yours. I know you got a different building there for doing the actual fermenting stage. But
Yeah.
can you share any little, without getting into any trade secrets?
No secrets at all, man. I mean, I would tell you, I'd give you our exact recipe and it would turn out different for you. You've got different water. You'll probably have different honey. I mean, it's funny. I don't care, whatever. We're open about it. But the simplest is, I mean, people can look this up, but it's like about 3 pounds of honey per gallon. And so if you just start there, mix that, and then you put a gram of yeast in that mix, that probably would do the trick. There's a little bit more to it because honey, it doesn't have the nutrients that are really required for a good clean fermentation. So mostly it's missing nitrogen, and so we'll often add some other nutrients essentially for that fermentation process so that the yeast stay very healthy and don't create any off flavors and don't stop producing and all that sort of thing. So yeah, there's some really great spots if you search mead making. If someone's really wants to get into it, there's so many resources out there, but it really is just honey, water, and yeast. So not too complicated. You don't need to heat anything. You don't need to boil anything. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. I know that it's not as big as wineries. It's more of a niche kind of thing. So
Totally.
whereabouts are you guys located, for anybody who's maybe even in the Virginia area, or even wants to take a road trip or anything? Whereabouts are you guys like? Because you got a tasting room that's actually open every Saturday, every weekday?
Every day it's open. So yeah, we're in a bit of a tourist spot here in America. You and I are Commonwealth brothers, but and then now we're both moved to the States. And so this town we're in is Williamsburg, Virginia. This is where Pocahontas' story is from. Like on my morning run today, I ran past where Pocahontas where all that went down, where the boats first came into Virginia is right here. So it's a very historical place, and it's got like a busch gardens and a water country and all sorts of like battle things. And so a lot of people come here. They've got the downtown area they've reconstructed, so it's supposed to be like 1785 or something, or 1760 or something, this downtown core. So anyway, it's a very touristy place, small town, really. Like maybe in the whole area is about 80 to 100,000 people, but we've got the amenities of a really much bigger place because of how many tourists come in. So Williamsburg, Virginia, beautiful spot to come visit and spend a week. It's a great family spot to visit. And that's where we are. We're just like a mile from the colonial Williamsburg center of town. And people book their tastings. They come in and have a glass of mead, or they'll usually the best thing is to go through the honey tasting followed by the mead tasting, and then people will often stay after and have a flight or a glass. And then we do jazz nights twice a month where I'm playing my bass, and it's an open jam, so people just come up, and we've got some ridiculously talented folks come and play, so it's really fun. So yeah, that's the thing. Silver Hand Meadery. One of those books I told you was called The Silver Hand, one of the books I read. So that's where I got the name. And my grandmother's maiden name was Silver, so I thought I've got Silver Hand in me. So I thought it was a good name to go with.
You're gonna laugh, but Stephen, is it Stephen R. Lawhead?
Lawhead, yeah, you know him.
Yeah, no, I don't know him, but I've read so many of his books. I think I've read The Silver Hand. I've listened to. I've done a lot of the audio books because I'll go on the treadmill or something like that.
Oh yeah,
yeah, he's yeah, he's got like Merlin, Arthur.
His whole Arthurian series, 5 books, is great. I'm reading Patrick. Have you read that one? No, it's the story of St. Patrick, basically.
Oh, okay.
I've read it twice, but I'm reading it now to my boys. With St. Patrick's Day a little while ago, I started it, but all of his books are so long, and reading them to your kids in one chapter a night, or you can only do a couple of chapters a week at that pace because I can't read them every night. But yeah, great stuff. He's so good.
Yeah, really creative too. You know, especially all the viewers know that I'm, in the creative world doing so much music and stuff. And so are you, Glenn. And it's just amazing, writing books or, fictional books. It's creative. It's like whatever you can think of in your head, you're not,
creating a whole world. That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you're talking about that before, I'm like, yeah, I'm a big fan of him as well.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So coming back to your success and I have no doubt that you're going to have success with in the sync world because you've got the same mindset, you've got the same philosophies of the hard work and learning what you got to learn and meeting the people and being around the people. I already saw you last year at a big event in LA, a big music event, and you had a bunch of people around you. You're meeting all these people and the people that are doing it. And so I know that you're going to have so much success with that. But I know you touched on just before, on your morning jog, and I know that you'll find that the viewers will find that you meet many successful entrepreneurs and they all do similar things. And that's something I do. I do my yoga, I do my gym every other day, and I go for runs. I got up to a half a marathon. I think it was last year, but I can't run. I'm like, it was more of a walk run. But how does that play in your own health and keeping yourself healthy? How does that play in your success? Well, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Glenn. I've learned so much stuff, and we've got some great wisdom nuggets and some great lessons from firsthand, from your experience, from the things you actually went through and the things you did, and hopefully you guys have, as you've been listening or watching this, that you've taken some of those nuggets and you're able to use them in your future. Whether it be talking about habits and creating those habits, or building the confidence that you need in order to be successful. And of course, if you don't know, head over to Silver Hand Meadery to find out more about Glenn Lavender and order some of his amazing drinks there and beverages. But I wanted to let you guys know that this podcast is sponsored by patreon.com, my account, which is patreon.com /Steve Collum. And if you head over there and seriously think about maybe supporting us, maybe even as little as buying a coffee a month, or just becoming a part of what we're doing here, and allowing Asher Kai, my stillborn son, to have a voice and have a voice out in the world. We're here creating inspirational and motivational messages and stories, and interviewing motivational and inspiring people. So think about that, and every little bit helps. Thank you so much. And also we I guess we'll wrap up. And I will see you in the next episode.
Whoa, we're gonna rise up. Whoa, not gonna give up. Whoa, we're gonna rise up. Whoa, we're gonna rise up. Whoa, not gonna give up. Whoa, we're gonna rise up. Rise up, yeah. Oh, we're gonna